that you are engaged and excited and happy to be here. We're going to do something a little bit different today than a sort of typical campaign event where I show up and talk at you, because that doesn't sound very fun. This is an opportunity for us to actually have a conversation with each other, with our neighbors. Don't worry, Minnesotans. We're not going to do like human knots or trust falls or anything like that, okay? But we do want to be, unless you want to, right? But we do want to have a conversation because we seem to find ourselves in a moment where people are fairly isolated. And I think this epidemic of loneliness that many folks are experiencing is part of the reason we find ourselves in the position that we're in with this divisiveness and toxicity. And I will be the first to say about myself, I spend a lot of time like this, right? And we want to try to break out of that a little bit and to be able to talk to each other, have, I know there are a lot of worries right now, but also talk about some of our hopes in this moment. And so how's that sound? I'm okay? All right, okay. And the act of just like even gathering is one of the ways that we can push back on what's happening in Washington right now. We are stronger when we are in a relationship together. We're stronger when we're looking out for our neighbors. And right now, as we are hearing from folks that somehow empathy is a weakness, I think empathy is what makes us strong as Minnesotans. And we're going to keep fighting for it because we're going to keep fighting for each other. Some of you may know me, but I'm going to just do a quick introduction and then we'll kind of get into it. But my name is Flanagan. I am your Lieutenant Governor. I am running for the United States Senate. And I grew up, you can clap for that. It's still exciting every time I say that out loud. Thank you. And I grew up in the community of St. Louis Park, which is a community where I still live with my family. My mom moved us there when I was just a baby using a Section 8 housing voucher. And she picked St. Louis Park because she knew that I would have access to good schools, to stable neighborhoods, and just an opportunity to be in a community that cared about each other. We relied on public programs like SNAP, which back in the day we called food stamps, and I was that kid with a different colored lunch ticket. The Child Care Assistance Program was incredibly important to our family because it allowed my mom to go back to school to get her certificate in phlebotomy at St. Kate's, and then help to lift our family into the middle class. And I also am standing here in front of you, alive today, as someone who used Medicaid. I was a kid with severe asthma, and I was in the hospital more often than I was out of the hospital. In fact, in 3rd grade, I missed Halloween, and my tutor, I did tutor because I was missing so much school, Mrs. Orr, she went door to door dressed as a clown, as a grown woman, and she went trick-or-treating on my behalf. And she came into the hospital and brought me a bag of candy. She didn't get paid for that. She didn't have to do that. We need more people like Mrs. Orr. And I still believe, and I still have hope for Washington, even when it feels a little tricky right now. I just think there has to be more people with lived experience of what it feels like when the bottom could fall out at any moment. There are too many people who feel that way right now. And so that lived experience, but also being able to pay back and pay forward what's been invested in me in fighting for things like affordable, accessible child care, paid family and medical leave, economic opportunity for families, and really simply just having a stake in each other. And I'm a kid who didn't know a feed bag from a seed bag growing up, but what I know now, after spending so much time with farmers, is that farmers are also the reason that I had food in my belly as a kid who grew up on SNAP. And so we are all connected, we are all in this together, and in this moment, there are a lot I regret my vote. This is not what I want. And rather than punch them in the face, right, there is an opportunity to say, okay, there's a place for you here, and it's literally all of us versus extremist billionaires who don't care about whether or not we make it. So if you're a Republican, or if you're a Democrat, if you're independent, like, we're all going to be impacted by these ridiculous decisions or just pure chaos that's happening right now. And we're going to talk about it. And we're going to band together, we're going to tell each other stories, and we're going to have each other's backs. And I'm an organizer, so I don't know how to do this any other way than actually being in conversation with each other. We've been in St. Louis Park, Apple Valley. Yesterday we were in Hibbing and Duluth. Today we're here. We've got many more stops. And I'm going to spend a lot of time in Greater Minnesota. Because too often what happens is it feels like right before Election Day, like the circus comes to town and tells people how important they are, and then you don't see them for 2 years or 4 years or 6 years. We have to do this work now. And folks are like, 21 months, Flanagan, that's so long, right? We need that time to go and to keep coming back over and over and over again. People just need to know that we care. So thank you for being here. And we're going to open this up. I heard that there's folks who were visiting here before I came in, which is great. And the first question is just like, why are you here? You could be anywhere, Rochester, but you decided to come here tonight, right? And what worries you? This may be a very long list, it's okay, right? We can also purge some of this stuff right now. What worries you in this moment? So let's just start here. Why are you here? Introduce yourself, and then what worries you in this moment? Because I'm a nerd and because I'm an organizer, there are Post-its on the table. You want to just write a few down? We are literally like taking all this stuff that we're hearing from folks. We're going to send it back to you. And when we get to this part, right, this is in particular some of the stuff that I think will be helpful as we move this space. But what worries you in this moment? And go ahead and talk. Yes, go be your but they're on.
Yeah, exciting to be here. And I was just at the Union Hall earlier today. Yeah, they're concerned too about things that are going on. We're just, we hate to have the fortress mentality, but that's what we've been told from our leaders too, in DC. So fortunately the courts have been stepping in to some extent, restoring the person who was fired from the NLRB, restoring her back to her position, but they still, I don't know the makeup of it, but he appointed somebody that, of course, reflects his views. But the real concern, is like, where they ran policies through this national right to work law, and I don't know what, I'm sure there's a companion bill on the House side, so I'm sure they'll try and sneak that into their reconciliation bill or whatever, so that, it's that kind of crap that's flying below the radar while they're got the Sherry Public. And they're going on with the crap going on in Canada, all the distractions. So yeah, that's kind of our, my concern. I'm ready to retire, but even there, it's like, okay, you got to worry about your Social Security.
Yeah. And you pay for parking? You're good? All right. Now I'm going to ask you, yes, who are you fighting for? All right. My country, that's a good one. Your grandchildren, everybody. One was a who. Right, there you go. Awesome. Yes. Oh, yeah. Who are you fighting for? You got the tricky. I know. Yeah. That's exactly right. Take a couple minutes to do that. Hope you're okay that it took off the blazer. It's like really peoply in here. So it's a little warm. And I can grab them too if you want. Thanks for being here. All right. Any more you want me to pick up? All right, and if you have more, we can just keep adding them, no problem. So we got a lot of worries here, folks. I share a lot of these worries, but let's talk a little bit about them. What are some of the worries that you put up here? Water. And tell me more about that.
Well, the data centers they want to build and give huge tax breaks to are going to use massive amounts of water, and they're going to use a lot of electricity. How are we going to get to the sustainable electricity that we had hoped for if we're going to put little or big data centers that use as much as a city or two cities? It worries me a lot. I'd rather unplug Bitcoin myself.
Yeah.
And I don't care if all my emails are there for 1,000 years because I wrote some dumb stuff.
I'm thinking about like what my handle was for Hotmail. When I first had an email. But no, that is not the first time that has come up in these conversations. So the use of water for cooling and just water for AI as well. Yep,
Yeah.
for data centers. Yep,
And
it's a shared
mining,
concern.
too,
Yeah.
that's going to destroy water's going to be more valuable than copper in 20 years.
And we know how valuable it is here in Minnesota.
Yeah.
We got a lot of it, which is why they want to put some of these data centers. Yes.
I have two primary concerns, and I'm treating personal right now. I'm looking at losing my farm in 6 to 12 months. We're 80% USDA funded, because we do sustainable research and development, and anything climate safe is now gone. We lost $320,000 2 days after the inauguration. It's gone. So, we're the reason people talk about hazelnuts as a viable crop in Minnesota. And we could be bought up by billionaires in 6 months. Second is discrimination in libraries, that push to get books out of libraries. While it's the law in Minnesota that you can't ban books, that doesn't stop it. We're both librarians, as well as farmers. I'm a farmer too.
Wow, wow, like so much awesomeness.
And we're currently going through an issue in our library with massive amounts of discrimination. We have a group attacking our library, and they're being supported by certain people within the city's covered head. So, I got 2 serious problems that need to be solved now.
Yeah.
I can't wait for the federal judiciary system to fight Trump. I need solutions in 2 weeks. I'm not kidding. So we need to come together as a community and start saving each other.
That's right. So, first of all, like, I'm so sorry.
It sucks.
It sucks. Yeah, it sucks. And farmers have gotten the middle finger in such a major way from this Trump administration, every which way, right? Like,
And they voted for him.
yeah. And so there is an opportunity, right? There's an opportunity, but one of the things that we are also doing here, there's a link also on our website, and there's additional paper here. Tell your story, and we will deliver it to your congressperson.
Oh,
great.
great.
No, but like, this is also, yes, and maybe you have already.
I've been protesting his office for weeks.
Which is frankly part of this. It is part of bringing all of us together so that we can be like, hey, Rochester, like, there are people, this is personal. All of these things up here are deeply, deeply personal. And so I think one of the most powerful tools in our toolbox right now, those stories, those personal stories, because listen, you know, like facts, figures, statistics, it's easy to dehumanize those, right? But when I know your story, Megan,
50 years of sustainable agriculture research and development.
That's right.
We got 12 months max.
That's right. And so we can help rally, and when you tell your story, we are going to continue to bring these stories to our members of Congress. For some folks, we're going to be like, hey, thanks so much for all you're doing. For other folks, it's, we expect more. And it is A-okay, and especially farmer to farmer congressmen, that's incredibly important. So I don't have all the answers, but I can give you an additional tool, and like, it feels like this is a good room of folks to also have each other's backs. And with the library stuff, that is unconscionable, and I hear you.
It sucks.
It sucks. We're spending a lot of time in libraries for these conversations. Yesterday in Hibbing, we had our conversation next to the Bob Dylan exhibit at the library, which was like, this is pretty cool, right? But also when we were in the library, you see all these books on Ramadan and LGBTQ kids, right? And like Native children, and it just like, I mean, our bookshelves should look like our communities, right? So thank you for fighting for that and standing up for it. Yes.
I'm worried about cuts in the U.S. Department of Education. My name's Pam. I teach at RCTC.
Thank you, Pam.
And I've got a lot of friends in the room. And I just feel like at this point, what we are seeing is a federally funded effort to dismantle public education in this country. 20 years ago, McKinsey and Company and the Koch brothers were already in Minnesota, for those of you who don't know. And they were pushing private schools and vouchers and all different ways for people of privilege and means to get out of the public school system and exit with their children, exit with their tax dollars. And then what does that do? Shrink services for the rest of them. And education is too sacred to be a business. Education is a mission. It's how we level the playing field for these kids, race, class, gender, sexual orientation, all of it. It's just too sacred to be a business. And so if we don't think about public education for all and fully fund public education, these kids are going to fall through the cracks. They are the next generation. I in Men's State School, we talk about vocational education a lot, and preparing your next workforce. These are the people who are gonna work, and I'm looking at critical thinking skills and job skills. I want to be able to be good citizens and smart voters, and not just cogs in a wheel who only have one skill and only can do one job for minimum wage or in the gig economy for the rest of their lives. And the last thing I want to say is at Men's State, you know, the system started in 2020, our Equity 2030 initiative.
Right.
And I'm deeply offended at by the federal government saying that DEI is now somehow illegal. Because DEI is just empathy, compassion, and human rights all rolled up into, you know, an acronym. And I have to appreciate Scott Olson because he's still pushing forth our Equity 2030 initiative. But if you think I'm nervous about teaching DEI and that's all I teach, imagine what these K-12 educators are dealing with right now.
So thank you for being a teacher. And yeah, as a recovering school board member, I am deeply frustrated by the conversation that we're having right now about the Department of Education, along with the Secretary of Education not actually knowing what IDEA stands for. That's interesting in the most Minnesotan way possible. And would say that Congress has never met their obligation, which has been to fund special education at least 40%, right? We are still not there yet. And, you know, we are told every year, right, like, we'll get there, just hang in there, just hang in there. And now it feels like the rug has been pulled out from underneath us. We are required to still provide that level of education for every student who comes into the classroom, right? And so we need to keep fighting, we need to keep telling those stories, and, you know, what the Department of Education does is levels that playing field, provides every opportunity for folks, and we're not gonna be quiet about it. And I would also say, concerns around DEI, but I think we should name it diversity, equity, and inclusion, and I would include also equality in that. You know, as someone who has trained thousands of organizational leaders, CEOs, diversity is actually just how we get good results. Like, even if you're not gonna do it out of the goodness of your heart, right, it's smart. And so, like, we need to not buy that frame and keep pushing back. Right? Like, we want to innovate here in Minnesota, and I think we are in a hub of innovation right here in Rochester, and there's a real opportunity. There's a real opportunity. Are we getting in trouble? No, sure aren't. Come on in. All right. There's too many people, but yes. So thank you for that. Absolutely.
Yeah, concerned about the attack on government workers, and you know, a lot of those people that have been laid off are veterans, and
Right.
Really concerned about you know, making them the boogeyman, and how it's you know, how it's going to affect us nationally in all levels of our society.
Absolutely.
So.
And people who were willing to serve. When we were in Hibbing yesterday, was talking to a mom who's like, my daughter is in the military and I want her to be able to come back and simply get what she's earned. That's it, right? That's it. And again, regardless of where you fall and what side of the aisle, on which side of the aisle, we should all be able to agree that we're going to do everything possible to care for our veterans. So I hear you. Yes, Tammy.
One of my concerns was that my daughter has been unhoused for over a year. She represents a lot of our folks, including folks who are right outside our doors here at the library. So this is a safe place for folks here in Rochester. But, you know, got sick, lost her job, lost her housing, and has been unhoused ever since because she falls through all of the cracks. And now with the threat to Medicaid, she has a mental illness, and if she loses those medications, she won't have those. And as her mother, I don't know what to do either. So just looking at Rochester has criminalized homelessness as well. So
Camping is illegal.
yeah. So that's you know, I'm raising her as a person, but yeah, because homelessness it represents people, real
Right.
people.
Who are our neighbors,
and our relatives and members of our community. I'm the chair of the Interagency Council on Homelessness here in the state. You and I should talk offline because there may be some more things that we can try to figure out. But that's absolutely right, and that story is important. Your daughter is a person, your daughter is your child, and that story needs to be told. Thank you, Tammy. Mary.
Oh,
Yeah, yes.
sorry. I have a similar situation, although my son is not homeless, he lives with me, which is in itself a significant challenge because of his mental health issues. And a lot of people with mental illness do not acknowledge that they are mentally ill. It's like a lot of people who are addicted or whatever, they think they're fine, and you can't make them get help if they're determined not to. So it is very difficult. What I was going to say before I heard my friend Kara talking about her situation, I think everybody in this country is at risk except rich white men. If you look at all segments of the country, including farmers, many of whom, probably, I don't know if it's the majority, but it might be the majority, at least in Minnesota, who are white. But brown and black people are not welcome in this administration. Newcomers are certainly not welcome. We had a student with a green card who got arrested in the middle of the night. If LGBTQ people are not welcome, women are not thought very highly of anymore. I'm sure when you figure out all populations, all demographics in this country, the only people who do not have a lot to lose in this administration are rich white men.
Agreed. And that's a lot, right? It's heavy. And sometimes, I also think that, well, as a Native woman,
There you go. I'm sorry I forgot.
No, don't worry about us. It's all right. You know, we're here.
Although they just won a lawsuit.
Yeah,
That
it's,
was
yeah.
recently here, not too long ago.
And I would just say, I would say, I also am really clear that the strength of our identity, right, and those things that maybe make people push back on us are also opportunities to stay connected and stay strong together. But yes, and to just name it. And I feel that. I want my daughter to know who she is and where she comes from and be proud of being Ojibwe and being German and being Irish, right? She's like a fiery combination, right? Or some, at least on Monday, will be O''Jibwe, right? That's how that works. But that it is it's just like the fear, or in this moment, I think there's a lot of people who are trying to make themselves as small as possible, right? And that doesn't serve anybody, right? And so.
Give that speech again, about not being small.
Yeah.
I want to get it right.
Well, I will just say this. As a survivor of domestic violence and a child witness, I spent a lot of time trying to make myself as small as possible. In the moment, it helped keep me safe. Now, it doesn't serve me. And it certainly doesn't serve anybody else. And that, even again, just coming here, showing up, talking about what we care about, is a way to take up space, to not make ourselves small, and to push back. Say, we're not just gonna take this. Here in Minnesota, here in Rochester, we're gonna be aligned, and we're gonna support each other, right? And so I appreciate you lifting that up. Yes?
I'm really concerned about the loss of integrity with co-equal branches of our federal government. And I think a lot of what trickles down are the fears and worries that we're hearing from one another. I think that loss is huge, and I'm worried that courts aren't even going to uphold what is specified in our Constitution.
And there are a lot of tools in our toolbox right now that we can use. The courts are certainly one of them. I would encourage you, though, to follow what Attorney General Ellison is doing. I have subscribed to his press releases.
What's the name?
Attorney General Ellison, if you go to his website. Because multiple times a day, you're like, oh dang, right? He did it again, right? Like he stood up for us again. And you know, he won this case, or he was part of the suit with the National Labor Relations Board, where they just remove someone. Turns out you can't just do that, right? And push back. And so I hear that fear, and it is one tool in our toolbox. Gathering like this is one tool. Writing letters to the editor, protesting outside of the offices of some of our elected leaders is another tool. I think it's really interesting that they're encouraging folks to no longer have town halls. That's your job. It's your whole job, right, is to show up and be there and hear from people. And sometimes it means that we're going to do, marching in the streets. The women's march that we just saw on the Capitol steps, right? Like that is another tool in our toolbox. And I think so many people are like, but what do I do? All of it, right? And figuring out what is your role? What is the thing that you lose track of time doing? That is probably something that you can also give in this moment, right, to this work. Now, I know we got more worries, and I'm also looking at the clock. So we're going to keep talking about these. We'll do 1 and 2, and then I want to move us on to, like, these guys.
I'm concerned about all of the dark money in politics. And what can we do, to fight them?
So one of the things I think is...
I've been reading a book called
Yeah.
The Scheme about the Supreme Court, how they've been basically taken over by dark money.
And just, trips,
Right.
cruises.
Right, because you get these certain people on the court.
Yeah.
And, you'll be running a campaign, and depending on how the Koch brothers feel about you, or,
I have a sense of how they might feel about it.
you might be seeing, you're a little, you're vulnerable because of the DEI stuff. So I think you're a great candidate.
Thank you.
And I'm all for you, but
We're going to go
I'm
into
just
this.
concerned.
Yeah, and we're also going to go into this eyes wide open, right? As an Ojibwe kid named Peggy Flanagan, I've had to bridge a couple of relationships, right? Like, that's my job, right? But I would also say this. The way that we also can combat that is with small donors, small dollar donors. Like 2 examples. When I ran for the school board many years ago, I was going through the community, and there was elder in our community who was doing an Indian taco sale. So, so if you had fry bread, tacos, right? And she was doing it to just raise money to help take care of her family. And she reached into her Folgers coffee can, and she pulled out $5, and she put it in my hand, and she said, "My girl, we're so proud of you." That $5 donation meant, and still clearly, right, 20 years later, means so much to me. And the response that I have gotten from folks all across the country, but people who have said, "I've never given to a campaign before, but I became a sustainer at $5 a month for folks that I know that's probably pretty hard." That is what this is about. And I know it's going to be an expensive race. And I know I'm the underdog. But I've never backed down from a fight. And I know I can out-organize everybody. And so, that is what we are going to try to do with this campaign. But I hear you. And we have to win elections to also be able to say, we got to get dark money out of these elections. And now I have a book recommendation, The Scheme. Is that right?
Yep.
Okay. Thank you.
Sheldon Whitehouse?
I know him. I door knocked for him. Yeah. Yeah. In Rhode Island.
I think I check off a lot of boxes, like a lot of people here. I'm married to a veteran who is a farmer and retired. I'm retired. I'm a retired special educator.
Thank you.
I have a granddaughter in the military. I had a mother on Medicaid. And what I'm worried about is my first protest was 1966 for Vietnam. And then Roe, and I never dreamt that I'd be back in square one.
Yes.
Doing the same thing again.
Doing it again.
And I'm worried about the generations in between me and me that have taken so much of the rights that we didn't have for granted. And I am willing to work really hard for you if you're willing to work really hard for us.
So, when Roe was overturned, Tim Walls and I were filming a campaign commercial at the Painters Union. I had a lot of makeup on my face, and everything kind of just stopped. And I did what I knew to do in that moment when something goes wrong, and I called my mom. And my mom said, "Well, Peggy, I've been preparing you your whole life for this moment," which was some tough love and sort of like, get it together, kiddo, right? But was an incredible reminder that yes, in fact, she had been preparing me my whole life for this moment, and that there are others who have been prepared for this moment, the people who have loved us into existence in this moment. And she said, maybe a little more aggressively than you just did, she's like, "Listen, we had to hand make flyers. We had phone trees, and we couldn't just send out an invite on Facebook, right?" And she's like, "Now you have photocopiers, right?" And so, again, a little tough love from Pat Flanagan. But we lost my mom shortly after the election. But she knew that we won.
Yay.
And I have my marching orders. And you just reminded me of those marching orders. And yes, I will. And we have a lot to learn from folks who have done this work before. And that, I think, is one of the things that gets lost, right? And feeling like, oh my gosh, we have to do this all over again. Well, we've got some people. We've got some warriors like Kay who have done this before.
And they're done that.
Yeah, who can also help teach us how to do it. Yes.
I worry about, I think it entails a lot of what we're discussing here, an autocracy takeover.
Yep.
And that we don't have a counter narrative. I'm worried about the top leadership here. And the need to bring in leaders that have more charisma, perhaps. I don't think Schumer is the answer. I don't think Jeffries is the answer.
Nancy Pelosi?
Nope, I don't think so. I think, what are we doing to magnify our voices? I don't see us doing nothing at this point. And I'm worried about that. Republicans are very good about, their message, their narrative, sometimes taking a lot of credit for what Biden has done. What are we doing?
Yeah.
I don't see us doing anything. And I worry about that.
So part of what we're doing is this,
Yes.
but also I'm not going to wait for one leader to save us. And I think like that is also the lesson of this moment, is that there are a lot of people who are willing to come on like a perfect, beautiful Rochester afternoon to a windowless room that's kind of hot, right? To like have these conversations.
Yeah.
So that's part of it. But also I think part of the message right now though is just like, they are not for you, right? Like it is literally all of us who just want a fair shot. I just want to be able to like live and be able to provide for my family have my kid be set up to be successful, maybe be able to retire and know that we have Social Security. That's it. And I think that that's a lot of what other folks want too. And like, that is part of what I am doing or trying to do with this campaign, is also to go all over the place and just hear from people. Because that's one of the tools that we have, but I hear you. But I think folks, like, again, there's not one leader, there's not one answer. But I think that we've got to have us, at least for now, as we're sort of waiting. I think there will be, once we get through whatever the next presidential election is, and who are the nominees, and da-da-da-da-da. But in the meantime, we can't just throw up our hands. We got to show up for each other. We got to do this
I
work.
worry about even having
An election?
an
Yeah.
election
Mhm.
at this point.
That's
It's
right.
taking control of everything, even the post office. What are you gonna do to manipulate votes, right? I mean, even the midterms, I don't know. I mean, can we do a campaign of commercials that really emphasize all the big no's, all the, you know, outrageous things that these folks are doing? I mean, something that is a more concerted effort that really puts Republicans, you know, and we're facing them with factual information.
Mhm.
I mean, they're taking credit now over the infrastructure bill. I mean, show how many Republicans vote against it, you know? Put this in a commercial. I mean, there's so many factual information that we can put together and just run commercials, you know?
And it's also about, right, it is about commercials, but it's also about, like, where are we actually getting our information? Because they're from completely different places.
Absolutely.
Right?
Sources are
Yeah.
important.
Yeah, that's right.
I just wanted to interject a little hope.
Yay.
Yeah.
Thank you for transitioning us. See here.
I'm like you, I have multiple ways this is hitting me and my family. I'm recently widowed, I'm retired. My daughter's a brand new teacher. I have a special ed grandchild, all of those things. But I think I maybe wrote it up there somewhere. If the Republicans keep going like they're going, if Trump keeps going like he's going, there's going to be more and more people that quietly come up to you and say, I'm not voting again that way. You know, I'm going to support you. There's going to be more and more and more of those people, and we have hope for the midterms. We have big hope, and you're right, we've got a lot of work to do.
That's right.
But we have more hope for the midterms if they continue acting like this. How many people that are going to be hit so hard that voted the other way are going to say, do I really want to support that anymore?
We still have to have a good message.
Can we trust the midterms?
Well, we're working on it, right? I think part of it is also making sure that we have local government officials also. Sometimes we forget, right? It's like state and federal. We also need good people on our school boards, our, you know, city councils, the local election officials who also oversee, right, the literal counting of ballots. I am confident in our incredible Secretary of State, Steve Simon, here in Minnesota. Now that, you know, and we have to keep pushing it. I think this is also where people feel completely overwhelmed. This list, and there's so much, right? And it's easy to just, like, it's too much. I gotta shut down. Sometimes we can tap out and take care of ourselves. Like, that's important. And you don't have to be responsible for all of this, but pick the, like, 2 or 3 things that you're really fired up about right now and focus there. Colleen.
So my things that give me hope is the sense of community, collaboration, organization, and people power. Because we could all sit and say, here's what needs to be done, but you can't just wish and hope for it to happen. You have to take some action. You can't just sit and wait, well, it'll change out the midterms because I know people will just do this. I mean, in my heart, I just know it's gonna happen, right? You have to step up and take some action. But like Peggy said, you can't take action in everything or you're gonna burn out, you're gonna go nuts, right? But finding like-minded people who want to work in an area that you want to work in, right? So if you're really passionate about parks and land, like my friend here is, find an organization that's working on that, right? Sierra Club maybe, right? If you're really passionate about one other area, maybe you want to join in with the efforts at the DFL, right? I'm going to toot my own horn, right? I volunteer with Isaiah, Minnesota. We have areas that we are passionate about working with. There's lots of different organizations that are working to try to make our state and our nation, wherever, our city, better based on the beliefs that we have and what fits our goals. And you have to look for places that are in groups that are already existing, right? You don't have to invent the wheel. You don't have to run around town and try to like lasso up a whole bunch of friends, right? And hope that they want to join in with you. Maybe it's a group from your church, right? Amy has groups at her church, right? And in my church, we go to similar churches, right? That gather together when there's a cause, like when we do a lot of work for the people experiencing homelessness in Rochester, right? So we see a need because it concerns us, so we try to do something about it, right? When there's a need at the city council, we all go to the city council together because we see that need, right? So if you see that, you can't just wish and hope that it's gonna happen, and I call that problem admiring, right? We can't just sit and problem admire, we have to problem solve. So when you see a problem, you have to try to solve it. But as I've learned in my life, the hard way, you can't try to solve every single problem. Because then what happens? You explode, right? And then you just have, then that's when you hide and veg out on the couch and eat all the chips, right? And eat all the ice cream because you have too many problems to solve. So you have to just focus on a couple of them, right? I mean, I think I'm onto something here. So find that area that you want to push your time into. Maybe it's helping a candidate win their position, win their spot. Maybe it's something else, right? Focus, maybe it's helping a farmer or librarians, whatever it is, maybe it's just one small thing, or maybe it's something really big, but find where that passion is for you to help and jump in.
That's right. And I don't want to be Pollyannish either about elections, right?
Yeah.
Like, we're going to have to fight for it.
Oh,
right? And we're going to have to fight to make sure that we still have
it's a lot of
fair
work.
elections, right?
Yeah.
And it is a valid worry. And I have more confidence when we're able to come together and organize around it. The other thing I would say, just to build on what you just spoke to, there are groups all across the state right now who are there are now 4 indivisible groups, separate groups, right, in Duluth. My friend was like, oh, I can't come to your kitchen table conversation because we have our We the People cloquet meeting, and 85 people came last time, right? And so it literally is within just the last couple of weeks, people are like, okay, I'm in, right? And so like you also like are not alone in this. I'm gonna come here and then here and then here.
Me first?
Yes,
Okay,
Megan.
so, talking about hope, I'm from a lifetime Democratic family going way back. When you're talking about the issue of people giving up the rights that were so hard fought for, my mom used to take me on protests when I was still in diapers. I'm an old hand at protesting, at door knocking. I'm the Gilmore County DFL Volunteer of the Year. I am. My dad is a retired Marine, and so for most of his career, he could not be involved. And my mom called me up the other day, my dad was in Walsenburg, Colorado. I'm sorry for the term, but she said, he just broke his protest cherry. My mom's a hippie, okay?
Don't put that on the news.
My father, at over 70 years old, protested for the first time, and he was wearing his Brigadier Marine hat, and he was screaming and shouting, and I'm like, okay, you used to bail us out when we protest. Now you're doing it? Okay, start with the bail with that. People who were never involved are involved now. I mean, he was in Walsenburg, Colorado, where they were flipping them off.
So that's hopeful.
It's hopeful.
Right, there, folks. Yeah, we're stepping up. Yes, back here, Stephanie.
Yeah, so I wanted to piggyback off of what Colleen was saying, in that you have to find what you're passionate about here. It's not only that, but it's looking at yourself and saying, what are my strengths? What do I bring to the table, and what group could maybe do really good from my strengths, as a younger person, and with a job that revolves around the internet. I'm really good at WordPress, I'm good at graphic design, I'm good at lots of things. I personally reached out to Heather Holmes, who was against Dwayne Plum in the 24A district, because I live in Casson, and she's like,
I could use you. I could pick your brain for a lot of things because I can't manage my website. I can't do all this while being a full-time researcher and all this. Everyone needs our help, and it may seem really small, but reaching out to anybody who's running that aligns with you and your values, I think, is a really hopeful thing right now.
For sure.
And seeing where we can make our difference.
Absolutely, absolutely. We all have skills. I do not know how to build a website. I'm good at a lot of things. Simon.
So I mean, I think a lot of us can agree that the last election was a disaster. But what you might not know, maybe you do know this, it wasn't a disaster here in Rochester.
Right.
We won a lot here, and a lot because of the people in this room, which is what gives me hope. This will be fun. How many of you phone banked or knocked on doors with me for the referendum? Right. And we won that. We won all of our school board seats. City council seats. And I think that gives me a tremendous amount of hope. Well, I'm a vice president of the teachers union. So.
Thank you.
And Isaiah helped me. There's a lot of credit to go around.
But here's the big thing, we collaborated, we joined power together is what we did. It wasn't one single person trying to do it all.
And you changed your message.
We changed.
Like, the message was so great this last time.
Well, the other thing that I was going to say is that
Yeah.
That was
Yeah.
a total.
the other thing that I was going to say is that telling people that they're wrong is not a winning message. But we need to present a different vision of what government can do for people and what this country could look like. And I think we are going to have some good candidates. Full disclosure on one of them. I'm running for the state senate. Pretty soon we're going to have some pretty good candidates for CD1 as well.
Oh, please.
So we are working on that.
And it's on all fronts, right? It's folks who are running for office, right? It's also organizationally. We need all of those things working together. So that's good. Yes.
Emily. So I think somebody had mentioned just like the importance of having conversations with like-minded folks. I think it's having really good conversations, people you know that are not like-minded. And so I know a lot of people that did not vote the same way I voted, and I just try to, so I work in public health, my husband's been immersed in public health, try to have really good conversations about things I feel I can talk about in a very factual manner, and just have really respectful conversations. Maybe it's a private message, maybe it's just to continue to do that. And so I have a good friend, she also, a lot of my friends work in public health, but she convinced her parents through so many conversations that Trump was not the right person. And then worked on our other family. And I think it's just like conversations like these, but then conversations with, going to Farm Bureau conventions or going to places where they might not want you there, and just saying, I want to hear what you want to say, and talking with your friends that didn't support a person you liked, and just say, hey, I work in public health. Actually, this is the truth about, I work for healthcare for the homeless. My husband works in infectious disease. This is the truth about vaccines. And having a one-on-one dialogue that's respectful can change minds versus being a Facebook warrior or only talking to people that think like you. And I think it's like we've got to broaden our circles and have those trust conversations if we want to get more people to see the power of why government is so important.
And your willingness to do that, right? And continue to say it over and over.
They're not fun conversations, and it might take 20 of them and if it makes somebody get a COVID vaccine, which I did, convince some people to do that and have really hard conversations, then great. Then they got vaccinated. But I think we need to have more conversations with people we don't normally have conversations with, that are respectful and civil, and convince them why the work that government does is so important.
Absolutely. And to even be, that's right, and even to be willing to say, right, like, this is what I've experienced.
Yeah.
Like, I don't need to tell you, like what you think is right or wrong, but like, let me just tell you how I've seen this. Yeah, absolutely. And I think there's an opportunity for that level of vulnerability if you're willing to do that, right? That can start to crack some of, those walls open, for sure. Folks,
Just to piggyback off Simon, I had written down that here in Rochester we elect progressive candidates and we have success with that. But my other hope is my 18 kindergartners and their passion about the Black History Month heroes. And if you talk to them, they will tell you about George Crumb and the potato chip and Louis Latimer and the light bulb, like passion about it. And I know that my union has my back, my superintendent has my back, my school board has my back. Like I don't hesitate to teach my kids the things that they need to know.
That they need to know. Yeah, that's right. Can I have your Post-its?
Sure.
Thank you. Amazing. Kids are smart. They can handle the truth, right? That's something we know. Is that right, Catherine? Yep. Can I ask you what brings you hope? Is that okay? Yeah.
Definitely the people representing us. I am really hopeful that they're gonna initiate the change that needs to be made.
And what kind of changes do you think needs to be made?
Me personally, I'm kind of worried about the communities in our schools getting the support they need, like the defunding for schools with GSAs and things like that.
Well, thank you for speaking up. Thank you for that red t-shirt that you're wearing, and thank you for being here. We've been really lucky that we've had young people at every one of these conversations, so I'm going to plant a seed. If you would ever want to just like try to do this with just students, we can figure out how to make that happen too. Okay? Awesome. Anything else? What's bringing hope? Sue.
What brings me hope is you. People like you. Thank you. You are I'm originally from Minnesota, born and raised in St. Cloud. No one moves back there. I had left the state in 1978, lived in Colorado, New Mexico, Mississippi, and California. Retired in 2020, came back to Minnesota to retire. Ran for mayor twice in Harmony. I can organize things down there for you to come and meet and greet.
Thank you.
You are young, you are intelligent, you have lived life. That's what we need.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I didn't pay her to say that. Thanks, Sue. I'm conscious of time, but I do, if there's anything else that folks want to say, what is bringing you hope in this moment? Peter. Peter, I've known Peter for a long time. I'm so happy to see you here.
Yeah, people are super fired up this season.
Yeah.
It's almost palpable, and I hear it from multiple sources, and we need to take advantage of that.
That's right.
We need leadership to have events and things on an ongoing basis to point that energy to a productive place so that we can make change.
Absolutely. That's right. Folks are fired up. Anybody else?
Yeah. I'm happy that we live in a state where people can come to is safe.
Me too. And we get a lot of calls in our office about people who are like, I'm going to move to Minnesota. Or like, I heard you got a good thing going on there. It's really awesome. So thank you. Yes.
But they hate the winters. My husband's from LA, and he's still trying to be understanding.
Yeah. I can do a lot of things.
Thank you.
I can't control the weather, but we do need to do something about climate change. But yes.
The joy of the Minnesota winter, though, is it gets the people who can't survive the Minnesota winter back out of Minnesota. So New York State loves it.
What did Prince say about Minnesota? It's so cold it keeps the bad people out. Right? R.I.P. So thank you for your willingness to do this. I know that this isn't sort of a typical candidate event, but we're not going to run a typical campaign because I think what we have seen, frankly, isn't working. I think that by having conversations all across the state, that's how we can win. I think, we got a good shot. But I also think it is what is needed and necessary in this moment, period. I was raised on the Wellstone for Senate campaign, and so what I know is that my job is to also leave lasting infrastructure, leaders who know how to organize and do this work, young people who feel like they are part of something bigger than themselves, who are then ready for whatever is next. Because this campaign isn't about 2026. It is about what else are we trying to build and how are we leaving our communities and our state better than we found it. That is my plan, and we're going to keep having these conversations. So because we have started, all of a sudden people are like, oh, come to Cannon Falls, right? Come to my community. And so the answer is yes, come to Harmony, right? Like we are going to have these conversations, but also this is how people are like, what's your position paper on this? What's your position paper on this? Like, I'll get there. I'm a policy nerd. You all, like, I will get in the weeds. And right now, my job is to hear from Minnesotans and to listen as best I can everywhere I can so that as we are putting together what it is that we want to do together, people feel like your fingerprints are also all over that. Because this isn't just about me. It is about what we're trying to build together. So I would ask if you would, we've got some clipboards, just sign up if you're willing to, host one of these conversations, do a fundraiser, knock on doors. I actually think we're going to try to get out this summer a full year in advance because we just want to hear from people. If you have any other, as Stephanie would say, special skills, name it and we'll find a place. And if there are things that are coming up that we should be alerted to, or you'd like to also have be on our radar, or places where I should be, meetings that I should attend, or events that should of importance that I should know about, please do not hesitate to reach out. And I hope that you feel like we're not just responding to something or fighting. I'm a fighter, but I also want to build something, and I hope that you're interested in doing that too. And so just thank you so much for taking time out of your day to be here, and I'll be back, Rochester. Thank you so much. And if you have any more things that you're hopeful about that you want to throw up here, please do.
So glad you're running. So glad. You're the right person at the right time.
Thank you. State Health Department and practicing and then 50% of their funding.